Hi, and welcome to the show where we share the stories of the many who intersect with our healthcare system but are rarely heard from. My name is Kevin Poe, founder and editor of Kevin MD. Today on the show, we have Gina Geis. She is a neonatologist and she wrote the Kevin MD article, The Path Toward Your Ideal Life. Gina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we'll get into your article in a little bit, but first off, can you share your story and your journey to where you are today?
Sure, happy to. So I'm a neonatologist. I also have a few extra roles in my career where I'm the vice chair for professional fulfillment at my organization. I'm also a bioethicist and I'm a professional coach. And those roles have really evolved over the last 15 years of my career or so. I started off in undergrad at Siena College and then did my medical training at Albany Medical College, which is where I am working now. And then that was really, when I reflect back, I think that was those formative years that gave me the foundation for a career in bioethics. It was a really heavily emphasized part of our curriculum. And then when I went on to do my pediatric residency and my neonatology fellowship at UNC Chapel Hill, that's when I had some really great mentorship in bioethics and understood that this could actually be a career path for me with scholarship and so forth if I stayed in academics. So then I took my first attending job and realized at that point that I needed a little bit more formal training in bioethics. So I went back and did a second fellowship in bioethics at Harvard. And then ultimately, when I had the opportunity to come back to Albany Med as an attending years later, I went back and did a master's in bioethics at the Alden March Bioethics Institute. And I've just really valued all of those experiences. And I think it's really shaped who I am and the career that I've been able to build along the way.
Now, from a bioethics standpoint, have you seen any pandemic-related cases that's come up over the last few months?
Yeah, so, it's been a really interesting discussion that we've had since March. We've been fortunate in upstate New York that, the numbers have been fairly low, but when things were really gearing up, the Bioethics Institute was really charged in thinking about these issues critically and the impact it was going to have on our workforce and on our patients. We had to create an allocation strategy for ventilators if we thought that that was going to be a scarce resource. And it really fueled a lot of really interesting discussions and some thoughtful approaches to how we can best manage this.
So let's get into your Kevin MD article, The Path Toward Your Ideal Life. Now, for those who haven't read your article, can you walk my audience through it and share the story of why you decided to write it?
Sure. So I think my interest in this aspect of my career, and it's really led to sort of my roles as professional coach and as a vice chair for professional fulfillment, came from my bioethics background. So for years as a bioethicist, I was going throughout the hospital and sitting down with trainees and faculty and staff and trying to get their experience. And what I was finding was that some of these bioethical challenges were really impacting their burnout and leading to burnout. And so I sort of had made this link that, bioethical challenges equals burnout. And the more I started to study burnout and to try to understand that concept, I realized how much broader of an issue it was than just the bioethics piece. And so then I kind of shifted my focus into more of an organizational understanding of the components of burnout and the key drivers. And from that, have tried to focus my efforts in making a meaningful impact in this field for my colleagues, for the benefit of our patients and for the future of our health as a profession. And this article was really about me trying to help physicians think early on about how much control they actually do have in their careers. So through my roles as mentor or as my vice chair role, I'm often interfacing with physicians who really don't even know where to begin to think about what their goals are. And I think that the structure of our educational system really supports that. We have about 10 to 15 years of training that is really well prescribed for us. If you want to become a physician, you've got your 4 years of undergrad and then your MCATs and then residency, medical school residency, maybe a fellowship. And all of these years are just sort of laid out there for you. And what happens when you're finally done with all of that and you're an attending is you've sort of deconditioned yourself to really think thoughtfully about what do you want to do? Why did you start on this path so many years ago? And how are you going to make this your own? So when you get to that point and you sort of, you start this role as an attending and people say, well, what do you want to do? We're really not even positioned to think about these things critically. And so I was hoping that this article would start to carve out a framework for people to start thinking about those decisions and those choices so that they can actually take control over their careers and create the type of life that they really want and deserve.
So tell us a little bit more about that framework. What kind of questions should physicians be asking themselves, especially early on in their careers?
Yeah. So I think having that connection back to why you did this in the first place, what really initially motivated you, because many of us are making those choices very early on in our lives when we haven't even had a lot of lived experience. And some of those things really will hold true to you at the end of that training path, but reconnecting to that and making sure that you're continuing to meet those needs and to sort of scratch that itch that really drove you for all that hard work. But then it's about, understanding the vast possibilities that we have as physicians of how we could really, structure our career and to have ways of exploring those different paths so that, we continue to grow and to challenge ourselves and to push ourselves and we don't become complacent in just one way of doing this. So I think some of the questions that you really want to ask yourself is, what are the types of things that you're doing in your day and that give you the most joy, that give you the most fulfillment? If somebody gave you a 4-hour block in the middle of your day with all the projects that are the things that you're involved in, what are those things that you grab off of your desk first? What really lights you up? What's the thing that you're most excited about doing? And then also to sort of think about maybe at that 2 or 3 year mark after being an attending, let's look at them like a process map of all the things that you are doing. And what does that, diversity say about you and your career? Do any of those seem to really, tell a story? Or is it sort of, a random haphazard pattern of things that you're involved in? Because I think in the beginning, there's this, sense of, service and you're just excited to be done and people are needing things to be done and you're saying yes to what's coming your way, but you don't necessarily build in the time to reflect on, how much you enjoyed that or what skill set are you really bringing to that project and how much enjoyment are you getting out of it. And so if you just keep saying yes, yes, yes to all of those things, then you sort of lost this ability to say, how does this integrate into my career and into my life, into where I want to be a few years from now. So I often do exercises with junior faculty and some of my coach trainees about, trying to say, how do we really dissect and diagnose who you are as a career professional? And, is this really the story you want to be telling?
So I think you're absolutely right in that the pathway to become a doctor is very linear. It's very structured. Now you talk about some other paths that are available. Now through your coaching experience and through your mentorship, what are some of the specific alternative paths that physicians could take?
Yeah, so I think even within, an organization that you work in, there are so many different opportunities for leadership paths, for scholarship, for teaching, for patient advocacy. I work in our state's capital, the opportunities to really partner with legislation and help write legislation, to be parts of homegrown programs like family advisory councils and partnering with patients and families to actually change our healthcare system. I think that there's endless opportunities to be able to, engage in those different activities and to really make a difference beyond the patient care that we do, that we love and are so passionate about.
We're talking to Gina Geis. She's a neonatologist and a physician coach, and she wrote the Kevin MD article, The Path Toward Your Ideal Life. Now, if you're a physician just starting out, now what kind of resources do they have available to them? Should they be seeking out life coaches? Should they be seeking out mentors? Because I know a lot of doctors just don't have access to those resources. Where should they look?
Yeah. So I think it's important to be part of a community of something bigger. And I think it can be really helpful to have those supports in place as early as possible. So certainly thinking about, the types of institutions that you're working in, and as you're looking for a job, to really try to explore what those resources are internally. Because I think that helps build that natural support system around you that you're going to interface with on a daily basis. But there are a lot of external resources that you can take advantage of. I think coaching is one that I found later on in my career and has been such a huge benefit to me, to the point where then when I realized that there weren't as many coaches that were really comfortable coaching physicians, and understood the nature of what we do, I felt like that was a gap that I wanted to be able to try to help fill. So went back and got trained as a professional coach, and I'm doing that too. And the process of coaching and how it differs a little bit from mentoring, I think has been really eye-opening to me. Mentoring is a process that I've been very familiar with. I've had wonderful mentors and continue to have wonderful mentors, and I've been a mentor to a lot of people. And I think that there's so much value in those relationships. This coaching piece is just this, a very different skill set and a very different offering of service to physicians and healthcare professionals that can really augment those relationships and isn't tied so much to you finding someone who's, A, more experienced than you, who's B, done exactly what it is that you're trying to do and is going to be able to share that lived experience, which is sort of the framework for that mentoring relationship. Coaching is somebody that can be trained in asking the right questions so that you can build your own internal resources. And with that, the growth potential is so much greater. So when I work with a physician for a short period of time in coaching, the growth is exponential during that period of time because they're building up all of those resources and they're just, taking flight. Whereas when I'm in a mentoring relationship, it's often a much slower process.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about the relationship and sort of cultivating that relationship over time. So I think that these are wonderful resources that physicians can take advantage of every day, and some within your organization and maybe some without.
And my final question, Gina, do you have a take-home message that you want to share with the Kevin MD audience?
My take-home message would be that, every physician out there has the ability to really create the exact life and career that they want and deserve. And, by nature of being a professional, one of those cornerstones of being a professional is this idea that we self-govern, right? That we are the experts in this field. And so therefore we should be able to have a say in how this goes. And the healthcare landscape over the years has changed pretty dramatically. And often physicians are feeling like they don't have that control, that they don't have that say, and that power is being taken away from them. And with that disempowerment, can create a lot of apathy and lack of drive to really, do more with their career and to reach that professional fulfillment. So I think that, what I've learned the most throughout this period of time is that you really can take control. You really can affect change. You can create positions for yourself. You can continue to advance your professional development. And with that becomes, this empowering sense of, endless opportunity. And that's such an enriching environment. So I really want people to understand that they can do that any day, from the first day that they're in training all the way through the last day of their career and beyond. And it's up to you to decide, when you're ready to take that plunge.
And how can people find you?
They can find me on my website at ginageismd.com. I'm also at Albany Medical College, and they can find me through there as well.
Gina, thank you so much for sharing your insight. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.